And the headlines, South and North Korea's agreed to hold working-level talks this week to discuss arranging reunions of families separated by the Korean War, keeping alive hopes the two Koreas will begin taking steps to mend ties. 3 Korean credit card firms prepare for massive compensations for causing the largest data breach in the country's history, as financial regulators banned them from seeking new business for 3 months. Plus, a bitter political division is sure to keep rattling Thailand in the foreseeable future after anti-government protesters disrupted general election on Sunday. These stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Monday, February 3rd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Trifili in for Sean Lim. Thank you for joining us today.
We begin this evening with the latest sign of progress in the inter-Korean relations.
After exchanging messages back and forth on Monday, the two Koreas have agreed to hold working-level talks this Wednesday on holding family reunions. Our Hwang Sung-hee has more on the upcoming engagement.
Breaking its week-long silence, North Korea proposed on Monday morning that the two Koreas meet for Red Cross talks on either Wednesday or Thursday to discuss resuming the long-suspended reunions for families divided by the Korean War. Shortly after, South Korea accepted the proposal, calling for talks on Wednesday at the truce village of Panmunjom. At the meeting, the two sides will decide when and where the reunions will take place. South Korea had previously proposed holding the event from February 17th to the 22nd at North Korea's Mount Kumgang resort. But since it takes roughly 2 weeks to prepare for such an event, the Koreas are up against the clock. Nonetheless, Seoul's Unification Ministry prefers sooner rather than later.
The exact date must be discussed with North Korea, the working-level talks, but the South Korean government will try to have the family reunions held as soon as possible, considering the urgency of the matter.
The upcoming joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States, scheduled to begin late this month, could also push back the reunions. Seoul and Washington say the annual drills involving thousands of troops are purely defensive in nature, but Pyongyang views them as a war game. Experts say the North could make a counter-proposal on the reunion dates that would have the event taking place after the Key Resolve and Full Eagle exercises, which end in April, or even walk away.
They always can say, we were nice, we wanted family reunions, we wanted better relations, but the South Koreans, as usual, again showed their aggressive nature.
South Korea had earlier said that the reunion dates could be changed upon North Korea's request if it was for justifiable reasons. But because North Korea has a history of walking out of its agreements, the elderly family members waiting to reunite for the first time in more than 6 decades will likely have their fingers crossed until the day they see their loved ones again. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, while the full itinerary has not been announced on U.S. President Barack Obama's first visit to Asia this year, he is largely expected to visit Japan, the Philippines, and Malaysia.
With no official mention of South Korea yet, the Seoul government is reportedly making efforts to have him stop over, especially with the U.S. Secretary of State making his own trip later this month. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is reportedly planning a visit to South Korea later this month to discuss security issues on the Korean peninsula and ways to deal with potential provocations from North Korea. At a security forum in Munich on Saturday, Kerry announced his plans to visit China in 2 weeks to work on the North Korean issue. South Korean government sources say the U.S. top diplomat is likely to pay a visit to Seoul before or after his trip to Beijing. That would put Kerry in Seoul sometime during the 3rd week of this month, right before the joint South Korea-U.S. Key Resolve military exercises are scheduled to start in Korea. Could his trip be followed up by a visit from U.S. President Barack Obama a couple months later? Citing U.S. and Japanese officials, the Yomiuri Shimbun reports that President Obama will be making stops in Japan, the Philippines, and Malaysia during a tour of the region in April. He is reportedly considering a visit to Seoul as well. Obama and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe are expected to discuss a wide range of issues, including the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the territorial disputes with China and Japan, and the denuclearization of North Korea. President Obama had to cancel his trip to Southeast Asia in October due to the federal shutdown in the United States. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
And over now to a high-profile treason trial. Prosecutors have sought a 20-year prison term for a leftist lawmaker accused of plotting to overthrow his own government.
The verdict on 52-year-old Lee Seok-gi is expected in 2 weeks' time. Our Park Ji-won has this report.
At the Suwon District Court on Monday, prosecutors requested a 20-year prison term for left-wing lawmaker Lee Seok-gi, who stands accused of conspiring to stage a revolt in the event of an inner Korean war. Prosecutors also demanded that the 52-year-old lawmaker be stripped of his voting rights and be restricted from holding public office for 10 years after his release from prison. Prosecutors say the severe punishment befits the crime, as Lee had previously been arrested and prosecuted for a similar offense back in 2002. They added that Lee has shown no remorse for his actions and that he attempted to destroy the basic democratic order of South Korea in violation of constitutional law. Lee is currently standing trial on charges of leading a pro-North Korea group called the Revolutionary Organization. The underground group was allegedly plotting to overthrow the government by plotting to sabotage the South Korean government and U.S. troops in the event of an inner Korean war. In addition to Lee, prosecutors are seeking 10 to 15-year prison terms for 6 other Unified Progressive Party members who were indicted on the same charges. Lee has consistently denied the insurrection charges against them. A final verdict in his trial is scheduled to come by the 17th of this month at the latest. Observers say the ruling is likely to greatly influence the Constitutional Court's ruling on whether the leftist Unified Progressive Party should be disbanded. The National Assembly is also currently reviewing a motion that calls for Lee Seok-gi to be removed from his parliamentary seat. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And in the wake of Korea's largest ever personal information leak, financial regulators have slapped 3-month business suspensions on the credit card companies under question.
This comes as the government tries to bolster efforts to better secure the public's personal and financial information. Our Connie Kim reports.
Korea's financial regulators are coming down hard on 3 credit card companies whose customer data was stolen in the largest personal information leak in the country's history. The Financial Services Commission and the Financial Supervisory Service will suspend the business operations of KB Kumgang Card, NH Nongyap Card, and Lotte Card for 3 months, starting February 17th. Under the terms of the suspension, the companies will be banned from taking on new customers, issuing card loans, or processing cash advances. Existing customers, however, will not be affected as the suspension does not ban the firms from providing financial services to them. The suspension is the first in over 10 years when credit card companies indiscriminately issued credit cards that led to mounting individual debt. Last month's leak, which affected at least 20 million people, sparked concerns the data could have ended up in the hands of scammers. The estimated compensation for mental damage caused to customers by the data breach is expected to reach nearly $160 million. As another part of the punishment, the CEOs of the 3 firms are to face punishment depending on their accountability. With the public still up in arms over the leak, Prime Minister Chung On-won said Sunday that law enforcement authorities will begin an indefinite crackdown on those who illegally circulate or use leaked personal data. However, concern continues to rise as it turns out not only credit card holders' information could be at risk. Following an external audit, the Financial Supervisory Service confirmed Monday that the data of 51 customers of the Prudential Life Insurance Company of Korea has also been leaked. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
We are into week 3 since the outbreak of the bird flu virus in the country, and 5 new suspected cases have been reported since the start of the Lunar New Year holiday.
The Agriculture Ministry confirmed Monday that a chicken farm in the southwestern province of Jeollabuk-do and one in the southeastern province of Gyeongsang-namdo appeared to be negative for the virus, but said there is a high chance that other 3 duck farms in the central Korean province of Chungcheongbuk-do have been contaminated. The virus was confirmed in migratory ducks in Jeollanamdo on Monday after ducks were found dead a week ago. 40 farms have been contaminated with the virus so far, and at least 2.6 million ducks and chickens have been culled at 115 farms. And for more on the threat of avian influenza expanding across the country and ways to contain the potential damage from the virus, we are joined in the studio by Dr Hwang Sung-hee, Professor of Veterinary Medicine at Chungnam National University. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Professor Saw, there were fears that the spread of the virus could reach its peak during the Lunar New Year holiday, during which the 2/3 of 50 million Koreans travel across the country. How critical is the current situation?
Well, now you can say that many parts of Korea already contaminated this new H5N8 bird flu. So during the Lunar New Year holiday, almost 2/3 of Korean people they are traveling to from city to city, and they are visiting hometown. So now is that we are assuming that this virus is contaminating many parts of Korea, and that they can carry on especially in the car or even the human, right? And that kind of the movement definitely help this deadly flu spread to across the country.
How bad might it be, and how will the spread continue? Will it continue for a while, in your opinion, doctor?
Right, that especially this the highly pathogenic bird flu, right, and they can survive in the longer time during the winter time. So during the movement of the many people, right, they can spread to, they can transfer this virus to many, even the unimpacted area, right? So that virus in the contaminated environment, right, and during the and they can survive longer time. And the main mode of the transmission is definitely by aerosol transmission. So now, I mean, the vehicle people, right, they can physically move this virus to the unimpacted, especially to Gyeongbu or Gangwon area.
Well, health authorities have yet to identify the exact cause of the outbreak, but they're presuming that the migratory birds are the culprits here. Now, what role have they played in this problem?
I simply can say that after outbreak, right, there's a migratory bird or feral bird, any kind of, especially the wild animal, they can act as a secondary spreader. But the main question is whether or not that the migratory bird is the primary cause of current new strain of H5N8 in Korea. That's questionable because there is no scientific data, and H5N8 has been discovered or found in the migratory bird and the dog or chicken farm outside of Korea.
Okay, well, since 2003, just when we thought it was over, the AI pandemic, or the AI, I would say, spread has erupted over and over and over again. Right. Is there some shortcoming in the government's preventative measures, or is there more to it than just the government's lack of it?
The problem is that previous 4 times outbreak, right? So we didn't find the exact cause of the conflict. I mean the outbreak. So they only speculated migratory bird, right? So without the finding exact cause, right? It's hard to prepare for preventive measurement, to control. Right?
Well, they also say that unlike a few other strains of bird flu, the H5N8 strain has no immediate threat to people. But how concerned should we be of human infections or even eating poultry?
Well, now a lot of media in China report H7N9 flu, for example. That flu is highly adapted to human. They can transmit in the they can infect the human by aerosol simply in the nose and upper respiratory tract. But even H5N8 current outbreak in Korea, right? They do not emit the threat, but this virus any kind of avian flu, they can infect in the lung tissue because the human lung have the so-called receptor.
All right, Professor Saw, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features
restrictions is on the rise.
closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature circumstances that
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
the United States, the latest report, less than a
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
Meaning came on the news are trying to cover up the South's true intentions of maintaining confrontation.
Well, like in most countries, the summer months are the peak time for travel in Korea. In an attempt to spread out demand and to create more tourism hotspots in the country, the government unveiled a second batch of tourism promotion measures on Monday. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju has this report.
If the government's first set of tourism promotion measures in July was focused on bringing foreign tourists to Korea, its second batch of measures, unveiled Monday, is aimed at enhancing domestic tourism. The government laid out its plans in a meeting presided over by President Park Geun-hye on Monday. One part of the plan involves the establishment of so-called tourism weeks in spring and fall to more evenly distribute the nation's tourism demand, which currently peaks in the summer. The designation will cover a total of 22 days from May 1st to the 11th and September 25th to October 5th. The Tourism Ministry and the Education Ministry are considering whether to close elementary, middle, and high schools for short vacations during these periods. Also starting this year, the government will select 3 tourist cities of the year. Each of the 3 cities will be provided with as much as $2.3 million over a 3-year period. President Park described tourism as a goose that lays golden eggs and pledged to include tourism as the key sector in her 3-year plan for economic innovation.
관광 산업이야말로 간단한 발상의 전환으로 큰 부가가치를 창출할 수 있는 분야인 만큼 관성적으로 남아있는 불필요한 규제들을 꼼꼼하게 찾아내서 적극적으로 제거해 나가야 하겠습니다.
She called for world-class policies that are in line with the public's rising standards and those that bring out the unique characteristics of each region. Koreans spend around $23 billion a year on domestic tourism, triggering more than $36 billion in production and creating some 5 million jobs. President Park emphasized that should domestic tourism increase by 10% above that, the effect would be enormous. A notable thing at Monday's meeting was the president was joined by the Secretary General of the UN World Tourism Organization, Taleb Rifai. President Park also highlighted the importance of nurturing students in vocational high schools for the tourism industry, benchmarking Switzerland's advanced vocational training system, saying it will raise the nation's youth employment level and help meet the demands for employees in the sector. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
The current currency, that is, fell by the most in more than 7 months against the U.S. dollar on this Monday as the U.S. Federal Reserve's quantitative easing sparked concerns about capital outflows from emerging markets. The Korean won shed more than 14 won to finish the day at 1,084 won against the greenback. Now, analysts in Seoul are saying that while the dollar gained ground, aided by the Fed's stimulus cut and emerging market jitters, the Korean won weakened as foreign investors unloaded stocks. Now, meanwhile, shares in Seoul also finished the trading session lower in response to further Fed stimulus cuts and soft Chinese economic surveys. The benchmark Kospi closed down 1.1% at 1920, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq dropped 0.3%. Over in Thailand, anti-government protesters pledged Monday to organize larger street demonstrations in an effort to overturn the results of a general election that was first designed to quell the unrest. Protests against Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra disrupted the voting process in certain regions on Sunday, keeping millions of people from casting ballots. For those that weren't able to vote, the government said it would hold a second round of polls, although they added it could take weeks to do so. A new parliament will be allowed to sit until 95% of the seats have been filled. Figure skater Kim Yeona is widely considered one of the top draws at the entire Sochi Winter Olympics.
But she was a Cinderella story when she made it big, and of course now she is trying to protect her crown. I'd like to hear more stories like that in the upcoming Winter Olympics. But we have Stephen Che with some of the gold medal favorites there. Hello there.
Hey guys, the 23-year-old figure skating queen of South Korea has dealt with the immense pressure, much like she performs on the ice, with grace and composure. The international eye is on Kim, with the UK's independent newspaper, the latest media outlet, to list her as one of the stars to watch at the Games. Experts say that although she'll have to face major challenges, the real pressure will be on the rest of the competition as the defending champion makes her run for an historic repeat gold medal. Meanwhile, the Olympics is just days away, and Sochi is literally scrambling to put all of the pieces together. With media outlets pouring into the Black Sea coastal city, there are reportedly a shortage of hotel rooms to go along with other unfinished construction in the area. On the other hand, IOC President Thomas Bach said on Sunday that he was confident with the preparations. But despite all this, the Sochi Winter Olympics will open on Saturday, Korea time. And moving on, the National Football League season came to a spectacular end as the Seattle Seahawks routed the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 48. Winning the big game 43-8, the Seahawks showed why their defense was the best in the league throughout the year. Linebacker Malcolm Smith was named the MVP for returning a Peyton Manning interception for a touchdown, which put his team too far ahead to catch. And heading to the fairways, Kevin Stadler hoisted the trophy at the Phoenix Open for the first PGA Tour win in his 12-year career. His victory was settled when Bubba Watson missed a par putt on the 18th hole. And with that, he and his father, Craig Stadler, become the 9th father-son combo to win on the PGA circuit and will be the first ever to play at the same time at the Masters. Now let's wrap this all up with the English Premier League Matchday 24 results from Sunday. In the top matchup, Arsenal beat Crystal Palace to retake the top spot, while Liverpool was unable to close the gap within the top four with a draw with West Brom. But the standings look to be shaken up again as Man City takes on Chelsea in a big match on Tuesday. And that does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Well, it was an icy, cold day to start the week here in Seoul.
That's right. For those of us in the capital, we should get used to it for a while. For details, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung, are we in for another dip tomorrow?
Good evening, guys. Well, tomorrow is Ipchun, which is one of the 24 indicators marking the beginning of spring. However, the weather looks to be frigid cold. In fact, cold wave advisories have been issued in most parts of the country with the exception of Seoul and some of the West Coast regions. As for the current conditions, the nation is under the influence of a high-pressure system, which is why we're seeing clear skies across the map. Well, currently it's -6 degrees here in Seoul, but it feels like -13 due to the strong cold winds blowing at about 5 meters per second. And this bitterly cold weather should continue through Thursday. Also, there is a possibility that about a centimeter of snow may fall in the Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces. Taking a look at tomorrow's numbers, Seoul reaches -5 degrees, while Gwangju and Busan hit -1 and 3 degrees respectively. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon makes it to -4 degrees, while Dokdo tops out at -2. Well, stay warm in the cold, and I'll be back with more updates after midnight.
Thanks, Bo-kyung. And that's our broadcast on this Monday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul.
This has been Daniel Chan. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.